Welcome back to Books Like Fun. I'm Bo. Today we're going to take a look at 1-star reviews of Hemlock Island. I would not have guessed the ending of this book in a million years. I read Hemlock Island back in February before I even started my YouTube channel. I really enjoyed this book. I like spooky stories. This one was spooky. It was weird. Lainey Kilpatrick has been renting her vacation home to strangers. The invasion of privacy gives her panic attacks, but it's the only way she can keep her beloved Hemlock Island, the only thing she owns after a pandemic-fueled divorce. But broken belongings and campfires that nearly burned down the house have escalated to bloody bones, hex circles, and now terrified renters who've fled after finding blood and nail marks all over the guest room closet, as though someone tried to claw their way out and failed. When Lainey shows up to investigate with her teenage niece in tow, she discovers that her ex, Kit, has also been informed and is there with Jayla, his sister, and her former best friend. Then Sadie, another old high school friend, charters over with her brother, who's now a cop. There are tensions and secrets, whispers in the woods, and before long, the discovery of a hand poking up through the earth. Then the body that goes with it. But by that time, someone has taken off with their one and only means off the island, and they're trapped with someone or something that doesn't want them leaving the island alive. The overall Goodreads rating on this book is a 3.45. I myself rated it 4 stars on Goodreads. 35% of Goodreads users agreed with me. Today, we're mostly going to look at 1-star reviews. I loved this book, so I need to see what people who didn't love this book had to say. See if I agree with it. I always feel so bad writing negative reviews, but it was not for me at all. After reading quite a few high reviews, I thought I would love Hemlock Island. Sadly, I did not. Not even a little bit. The plot had so much promise. The creepy house on an island, weird things happening, past drama with friends bubbling to the surface during a major emergency. It had all the elements of a great slasher movie-esque story. The first half of the book was even decent, but the second half, along with the conclusion, was so outlandish and ridiculous. Ridiculous. I can speak. I promise. Well, I didn't agree with that at all. I love the creepy, weird stuff. I don't need all horror books that I read to be slashers. I think if all horror books were slashers, that would get boring pretty quick. Everything doesn't have to be about serial killers, and that's okay. I honestly feel tricked by this book. I was having fun in the beginning, and then things started unraveling. The plot became more ridiculous every chapter, and the characters began to annoy me. After the unhinged ending, I can't remember why I thought reading this was a good idea in the first place. I don't think the plot was ridiculous, but I do think the characters could have used more backstory, and the plot could have been developed a little bit more. I didn't hate the ending. It was weird, and I wasn't quite ready for how weird the ending was gonna be, but I didn't hate it. But I did want to know more about all of the characters. I don't think the backstory was fleshed out enough for me. 60 pages in, and I wanted to quit. I will admit that some of the creepy parts would have been great on film, but as a book, thumbs down emoji, this was advertised as a horror book, but it wasn't even scary. A few semi-creepy parts, and that was it. The characters were so annoying that I didn't really care about what happened to them, and the big reveal at the end was absolutely ridiculous. Facepalm emoji. This was such a disappointment for me because I love reading Kelley Armstrong. Someone pointed out that her standalone novels are not as good as her series novels, and I have to agree. I think this is the first Kelley Armstrong book that I've read. I'll have to double check that. And I keep seeing the same word in a lot of these reviews. Ridiculous! I don't think it's ridiculous. I've read books that are way more ridiculous than this one. I want to know what these people normally read. The big reveal ending part of the book that's weird, that's what they're all talking about. That's not how I would have written it if I wrote the book, but I don't think it was ridiculous. I think the backstory and things, if it was fleshed out a little more, maybe that ending wouldn't have come as such a surprise to a lot of people. And it was weird, sure, but I don't want all my books to be the same. That'd be really boring. A fun and entertaining mystery until it's really, really not. As someone who has read nearly everything that Kelley Armstrong has written, I was appalled by how bad this book ended up being. It started out okay. I was interested in the story, but the opening was too fast. I felt like I barely knew the characters' names before everything was happening. It left the characters themselves feeling flat and one-dimensional. It improved over time as they developed with the story, but the plot moved too quickly for me to care about Lainey and Madison, etc. Also, serious content warnings, big time. I got steadily more uncomfortable the more history was revealed. My enjoyment of the book deteriorated the more I discovered. A lot of the backstory left a very bad taste in my mouth, and the way it's handled in the present is even worse. The driving idea behind the plot is atrociously obvious and preachy, and I actively hated this book by the time I was done with it. Since that reviewer has read everything that Kelley Armstrong has written, they probably have a better idea of how she is as a writer. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure this is the first Kelley Armstrong book that I've read, but I still don't agree 100% with this review. I do agree that the opening was too fast. I wanted to know more about the characters before they jumped into everything. We didn't know a whole lot about Lainey before she decided to go to the island and check on things, and all of a sudden her ex is there, and her ex's sister is there, who's her ex-best friend, and their other friend shows up with her brother who's a cop. And there's so many characters that we don't know anything about, and I really wanted to know more about them before they all got together in this creepy place. I would have loved to learn more about the characters before they got to the island, and we definitely didn't learn enough about them while they were on the island before everything started to hit the fan. I don't know why the backstory left a bad taste in that reviewer's mouth, though. I mean, backstories aren't always neat and tidy. Things happen, and these characters definitely have a backstory with each other. Not all backstories are going to be happy. I wanted to know more about that situation, and I think it's okay if backstories make us feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm not sure what part they think is preachy. That's not the first review that says something about that either. I'm not sure what part they think is preachy. I got this book from Once Upon a Book Club, part of their buy one get one sale. The first few chapters were interesting and I thought promising. I eventually got irritated with the main character, lots of internal monologue, and the writing is just terrible. I don't like that the woke author had to inject a lot of wokeness into her storyline, which was really unnecessary. This read was a total waste of time, but I had to finish it because I wanted to open my gifts from the package of Once Upon a Book Club. Glad it was a buy one, get one. Too bad the book looks expensive because it's a hardback. Too bad because I'm going to donate it to Goodwill or Half Price Books. Ouch. I also got my copy from Once Upon a Book Club. I love Once Upon a Book Club. I thought the gifts were awesome for this particular box. But I kind of have to agree with this reviewer. I was also irritated with the main character. I don't understand why Lainey, the main character, and her ex-husband decided to divorce in the first place. I don't think that was clear. They both obviously still care about each other. It didn't make sense why they would separate. They were together during the pandemic, and okay, you're around each other all the time because you can't go anywhere because everything's shut down. And that seems like the only reason. I didn't get anything else from that. It was really annoying. I really hate when characters have misunderstandings that could easily be solved if they just talk to each other. So bad. So bad. The writing is terrible, nonsensical. The characters cannot decide what they're doing. They contradict themselves constantly. I felt as though I was reading the writer's thoughts and conflicts with the story as it played out rather than having her solve said problems and plot holes and edit her novel. It was just bad. The twist is ridiculous. Wow, it's so bad. There's that word again. Ridiculous! I don't think the writing was terrible. I do think it could have been fleshed out more. I'm not sure what plot holes they're talking about, unless they mean the same things that I was talking about earlier with not knowing why they divorced in the first place, things like that. I don't know that they're plot holes, but there's just not enough information for us. Pretty good until the villain was revealed, and then things went downhill fast. An absolutely ridiculous jump the shark adversary, and it was all I could do to drag myself through to the end of the book. A lot of people hate the villain in this story. I don't think I hated it. It wasn't what I would have done if I was writing it. When I get published, then I can have a better opinion on that. It is weird, that part of the book. My biggest problem wasn't the weirdness of the ending or the weirdness of the villain. My biggest problem was not understanding the characters as well as I could have if they were explained more. More information, please, about the characters. I can pinpoint exactly why this book didn't work for me. The characters are not real enough. They just deal with scares and traumatic incidents in the most matter-of-fact way. A lot of action took away from the gravity. I agree that the characters don't feel real enough. I don't like the way they dealt with the problems either. I don't like the dialogue that they had with each other. They either don't talk enough or they don't have enough emotions. This was not for me. I like horror books, but I didn't really enjoy this. The first half was intriguing with the friend and ex-husband drama that was all coming together, and then it just got weird. Also, the main character, Lainey, was really annoying to me. Wouldn't recommend. I definitely agree she was annoying because she didn't give a good enough reason for divorcing her ex-husband. He seems like a fantastic guy. They just get divorced. Too late, I discovered this is horror. I don't do horror ever. DNF. How did you not know it was horror? Look at this cover. How do you not know this is horror? Just looking at the cover, you can tell it's horror. Look at the font. Weird branches and stuff coming out of the font. There's no way that you don't know this is horror. No way. It's called Hemlock Island. Anything with the word hemlock in it is gonna be scary or creepy or horror. And I don't think the synopsis hid the fact that it was gonna be horror. I read it at the beginning of this video. The very last sentence that I read before, they're trapped with someone or something that doesn't want them to leave the island alive. That is very clearly horror to me. Did they not read the synopsis maybe? This BS is not for me. Almost immediately it starts in with the woke crap. Pronouns, cop bashing. That's in the first 4 chapters. Besides that, the writing is awful. Oh well, DNF at 10%. I don't know what woke crap they're talking about. I don't remember anything about pronouns. No clue. Maybe I forgot about it. I don't know. If it was in there, didn't stick out to me as super preachy or woke crap or what, I don't know. And I mean, the cop bashing was about the ex-friend's brother who's a cop. He was a giant a-hole. So I would have bashed him too because he was an idiot and didn't know how to do his job. If I'm forgetting something and you guys have read the book, let me know. I don't know what they're talking about. Specific for the horror moments of the book, they were very well written and caught me off guard. The dialogue in general was very clunky and sounded more like exposition than conversations. The book had a nearly unbearably slow start. The excitement doesn't really begin until my Kindle told me I was over 50% through the book. It reads like a cheap horror movie, and the ending seems like the writer wrote themselves into a corner. The ending dialogue and conclusion was cringeworthy to say the least and was not at all a satisfying conclusion. I mostly agree with that one. The dialogue was not very good. I don't think it was realistic. Real people don't have conversations the way those characters did. The dialogue of the villain at the end was the worst. And I do agree with the conclusion being not satisfying. I agree that the conclusion wasn't satisfying. I don't like how the book ended at all. But yeah, the ending is not what I would have liked to see for this character. The most ridiculous stuff I've ever read. I can't believe I made it through the whole thing. It's like adult Scooby-Doo minus Scooby meets Walking Dead meets people in their 30s still tripping about their high school BS meets cheesy B-list soap opera, also chatting and casually hanging out discussing life while zombies or whatever the F mill about. The amount of running back and forth inside the house, back outside, inside the house, back outside, laughable, if not so stupid. Was this meant to be satire? Surely the author was just effing with us. Yikes. It was a lot. I don't understand why they kept going inside the house, outside the house. I think they should have stayed inside the house. I don't think it would have ruined the book if they stayed inside the house and dealt with the things that were happening. Now let's look at some higher star reviews, some 4-star reviews. That's what I rated it. And let's see if I agree with these. 3.5 stars rounded up. I thought at first this was going to be another and then there were none sort of mystery. 6 friends arrive on a privately owned island in Lake Superior and find themselves trapped there with a killer. But then the plot morphs into quite a horrifying supernatural thriller. Parts seem to be quite nightmarish, where the heroes try to rescue someone who keeps evading them time and again. Eventually, all is explained in a way I thought was well done. Different. I think overall it was an interesting story. There were definitely parts I didn't like. I didn't like the conversations between the characters. I didn't really like the ending. The character should have had a different ending than that. I don't think that was a good compromise at the ending. But I like the stranded or locked in type mysteries. This book became more supernatural than I thought it was going to, but I enjoyed the concept. My first 4.5 star of the year. A perfectly written thriller that engaged me from the very beginning. I enjoyed the story and the characters and couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. You will enjoy this well-written book. So obviously people don't agree. Some people said it wasn't well written. Some people said it was well written. I don't think the dialogue was super great, but overall I think it was well written. And this book didn't take me very long to read at all. I think I read it in less than a week. I liked it so much that I didn't want to put it down when I was reading it. This one is also 4 stars. A fantastically creepy standalone horror novel from best-selling Canadian author Kelley Armstrong that sees a rental owner called to check out her property after complaints about mysterious blood. Taking her niece along for the trip, Lainey ends up getting trapped on the island with her ex as secrets from the past come back to haunt her and bloody body parts start turning up. Full of spine-tingling chills without any of the gore and perfect for spooky season. This was also good on audio, narrated by Angela Daw. I don't agree with the fact that there wasn't any gore. There were definitely parts in that book that had some gore. It wasn't as graphic as it could have been, but there was definitely some gore in there. I didn't mind the gore. This one is also 4 stars. I finished this book in 5 hours, and all I have to say is it was quite the ride. I definitely didn't expect Armstrong to take this route with her story, but I'm glad she did. When reading horror, they say expect the unexpected, and believe me when I tell you, that was unexpected. I enjoyed every part of this twisty, terrifying, heartbreaking book that has a slight homage to nature itself. I highly recommend this to anyone who is looking for a book to start off running and doesn't stop. I never read books in a day, so this one is special. 5 hours. I don't know how people read that fast. I sat and read this as often as I could in the less than a week that it took me to read it. And I definitely read for longer than 5 hours. That's crazy fast. This is another 4 star. This definitely wasn't what I was expecting, but I'm not exactly mad about it. There were twists that I didn't see coming, along with those that I did. There is even a bit of romance in here. The main character kept brushing off things that were happening. It seemed out of place for the character as she was written. It was wonderfully gory and a good read for spooky season. See, this person agrees with me that there's gore. And it wasn't what I was expecting either. I do agree with that reviewer about the main character brushing some things off. She seemed to get hyper-focused on certain things and go chasing after stuff in the dark outside when she should have probably stayed inside. And then other times she would find out something and just kind of shrug it off and be like, oh well. And those things she probably should have been worried about. So I rated this 4 stars, and a lot of other people did too. 35% of Goodreads rated this 4 stars, just like I did. 15% rated it 5 stars. 32% rated it 3 stars. 12% rated it 2 stars, and only 3% rated it 1 star. So I would recommend this book. And if you have read Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey, you will like this book too. If you're interested in a spoiler-free review of the book Goodbye Earl, click the video on the screen. See you next time.